Hi there.
Welcome. Welcome to
Release Readiness Live.
We want to start off by saying
Thank you.
Is RRL about to start?
Let's get it started.
RRL.
It is important to watch Release Readiness Live so that you get a snippet of the coming attractions of the functionality that's coming from Salesforce.
We really focus on the features that are going to be most useful and impactful.
I get to find out what's new, what's coming. It's exciting.
It's a way for me to see, not just read, not just experience through webinar, but see a real person talking about what's important.
RRL.
We'd love to hear what your questions are.
Your feedback is so important. I think that's one of the most amazing things actually about the Salesforce ecosystem is how involved Trailblazers are with the evolution of our products.
I love getting questions during Release Readiness Live. Sometimes you never know what you're gonna get. People could ask potentially anything. Really helps me think about things as I'm developing a feature.
with Release Readiness Live, you get the great opportunity to actually hear it from the mouths of the people who spend a lot of time thinking about what exactly you all as Salesforce developers and admins are actually wanting to see.
And also informs us how we can improve the product going forward.
RRL. The reason why we stick with Salesforce is because we feel like we are heard.
I feel like I'm helping make decisions, hopefully good decisions, that will benefit all admins, all developers, all architects. That's a good feeling.
I feel like we're part of something greater together.
We'll see you next time in the cloud.
RRL.
RRL.
Let's get started.
Welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm your host, Jillian Bruce, coming to you live from San Francisco, where I'll be joined with product managers who are going to show you the latest and greatest innovations coming with the Spring 24 release. Now, we might cover some roadmap and future-looking technology today, so I need to remind you that you should only make purchasing decisions based on currently available features and functionality. Now, with that covered, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. By tuning in and giving us your feedback, you help make Salesforce better. And we have had a full week of amazing shows for Release Readiness Live. We started with sales and CRM analytics, and then we had service and flow. And today we have the admin and developer previews. All of the shows all week are going to be available on demand. In fact, a few of them already are. So if you missed anything, after you join us here, go back and watch what you missed. Now, for the next hour, we're going to be focusing on all things admins. My favorite group. We're going to be covering Flow, Prompt Builder, Einstein Copilot, and of course, an Admin Highlights grab bag from the amazing lead admin evangelist, Jennifer Lee. But before we get to it, let's talk about how you can participate in the show today. And I've got a very special guest here to join me to help out with that. Hi, Ella. How you doing?
I'm great, Jillian. This is my favorite time of the year.
You have been involved with a lot of Release Readiness Lives.
Yeah, I am super excited. I see a lot of excitement in the chat, and I can't wait to kick it off.
Yeah, people are already commenting, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. So in fact, that's a reminder. So if you want to participate in today's show, we want to get your questions answered by our expert PM. So you can ask your questions right here in Salesforce Plus in that Q&A tab. You can also ask your questions on the Trailblazer community, as well as on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days by using the hashtag SalesforceRRL. All right, now I think we're going to kick off the show because we got a lot of goodness to get through. So to kick us off, we're going to start with an admin favorite topic, Flow, by the one and only Diana Jaffe, Senior Director of Product Management. Diana, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be back. In case you missed it, I was actually here yesterday also talking with our wider Flow team in the Flow Release Readiness Live. But I know not every admin has all that extra time to spare, so I'm here to do sort of an in case you missed it recap really quickly through what's new in the Spring 24 release regarding Flow. So first off, starting big out of the gate is our updates to screen flows. There's a really cool demo in the Flow RRL if you want to see more, but just to really quickly recap. We are making screen flows more reactive than ever. In the last release, we GA'd reactivity, but we are not done until we make every part of screen flows, every nook and cranny, as reactive as possible. So we've now GA'd reactive display text, which I think is really cool. You can see here, you can change colors for things as different values change. And we've added long text area and text templates as well in this release. If you want to learn more, if you're a little behind the times and haven't seen the latest on reactive screen flows yet, check out our trail mix for more. But we're not done doing really awesome, new, exciting things with screen flows, because we have an entirely new, exciting feature called repeaters that's going to be in beta in this release. So you might be familiar with this pattern where you want to add potentially an unknown or multiple number of items. And you ask the user, you sort of say all of those things, and then you put this little checkbox that's like, I want to add another. And in your flow, you do a loop, you check that checkbox, and then you redisplay the screen again. I think we've all used this, we've all done it, it works, but it's not the best user experience. Well, now we have repeaters, and what that's going to allow you to do is take that form, right, name, date of birth, and then we automatically put that add and remove buttons, and so the user can just go in on one screen and keep adding those new sections. This is a really exciting new way to make your screen flows more dynamic, and it's available as a beta in Spring 24. But we aren't just doing cool things in screens. We realize the world is getting more and more complex. Data, we keep talking about big data. Data is getting bigger. And so Flow is doing a lot of things to make it easier to handle and ingest all of that new big complex data. One of those things is our HTTP callouts. We're continuing to invest in this, continuing to add more new features. And so the big new feature for this in this release is the ability to connect automatically to your service as you're configuring your callout. So you don't have to go in and define your data structure and worry about JSON at all. You can just hit the connect button right there in the builder, and it's going to go grab that data directly real time from the system for you and help you get set up. I think that's really cool, especially if the idea of JSON is a little bit intimidating. But once we get that data, there's a lot of things we know admins want to do with it, which is why we are doing a ton of work to build out Transform. Every time I see the Transform element, it's just more and more powerful, almost transformatively powerful. So in this release, we have a bunch of new things. We have multiple input sources coming in, and then once you're transforming those values, you're able to aggregate, so you can do roll-ups, like count the number of items, sum the number of items, or put in static values if you already know exactly what you want to set. That's also still in beta because there's just more to come. There's so much we want to do with Transform. And last but not least, the Salesforce ecosystem has more data and is getting bigger. So we are bringing platform and data cloud together using the power of Flow. We've been enhancing our data cloud triggered flows with debug, with error emails, a lot of those goodies we know you love in Flow today. But we're also using flows now to send back data to data cloud. So we now automatically configure based on your data cloud ingestion configuration, invocable actions that you can use to send changes and updates back to data cloud automatically. So just a lot of really exciting, big stuff, both on the screens and on kind of the back end of Flow. But it wouldn't be RRL if I didn't come and talk at least one more time about retiring workflow rules in Process Builder. This has been a long journey. Many of you have tuned in and been here with me as I've talked about this in the past. So I wanted to come in, give you kind of an update and tell you what's next. So we are saying farewell to Process Builder and workflow rules. We turned off the ability to create new a little while ago, and we built a migration tool to help you move and migrate. And I want to share with you here now. The official announcement should come out in the March timeframe in our official tech communications, but you're hearing it here early. We are going to announce an end of support target for December 31st, 2025. It's been my goal to make Flow so awesome and so amazing that you want to move and to make the migration so seamless that it's not a burden to move. But I also know I sometimes always need a deadline. And so we decided it was time to give you a deadline to say this is when you really need to migrate by. We won't be turning a big switch off at that time, but we will no longer offer support for it as of December 31st, 2025. So updates to the migration tool, we've continued to upgrade it. But one of the things we've learned from a lot of our admins and feedback is that because it's going to require additional testing, this might be a great time to revitalize your automation, review what's doing. A lot of us have miscellaneous things we don't use anymore that are just lingering around in a workflow rule somebody wrote 10 years ago. So check out Jen Lee and the Automate This podcast if you want to get some more tips and tricks from real world admins. But we're not done. We are continuing to invest in Flow. All those new features I told you about, those are all part of the new vision. So once you move to Flow, expect this is just going to allow us to continue to deliver more and more value and help you grow your business with the power of Flow. So before I go, I know those are all really cool, big things, but they all require work, right? They all require you to need a business requirement, ingest data, all of that. And I know some of you are very busy admins. So this is a really quick recap of 5 things that I think you could use in Flow in Spring 24 today. First stop, you can save as a draft. So now you can save your Flow even with errors, even if you haven't filled out all your required fields, which is going to make it a lot easier as you're sort of drafting and going. Next up, the 5,000 paused flows limit is gone. So we are no longer requiring that. That's really important if you have a lot of screen flows that are paused or if you're using flow orchestrations. Next up, we would love to just change this, but that's hard for a lot of reasons. We have added a tooltip on input validation and screen flows because that is the opposite true-false of validation rules, and we know this drives admins crazy. It's really hard for all of us to remember, so we at least put a tooltip to say, reminder, just so you know, this is a little tricky. One of my favorites, workflow action email alerts are now going to show you which flows use that email alert. So if you make a change to the email and you want to make sure that it rolls out everywhere properly, you can go ahead and use this. And last but certainly not least, we do a lot of work that no one ever sees on the back end to continue to make Flow function a lot. And shout out to our engineering team who spent a lot of time. We heard from many of you that if you have a lot of Apex invocable actions, that actions panel can take a really long time to load. So our team did a ton of underground rewiring and work, and it can be up to 9 times faster. We also use this to improve installing and upgrading packages that use Flow to make that a lot faster as well. So shout out to an engineering team. Sometimes that stuff can be a little thankless, but I know you'll really appreciate it, especially if you have that particular actions panel. So that was a really quick run through of Flow and everything we got going. Back to you, Jillian.
Thank you so much, Diana. I love that we got a little sneak peek at some of the Flow greatness that you showed yesterday. Now, a reminder, if you want to ask your questions to Diana, please do so right here in the Salesforce Plus Q&A tab. You can also ask your question on the Trailblazer community using hashtag SalesforceRRL, as well as on social using hashtag SalesforceRRL on X. Diana, thank you so much. So much Flow goodness.
So much flow. So much flow.
So much Flow. Speaking of Flow, I bet the commentary is flowing, huh, Ella?
It's really flowing. Grace broke the Salesforce Plus chat actually with a Jason Derulo reference there. So amazing, and a lot of love for repeaters and new validation features from the last release in Flow. So much excitement here.
I love to hear it.
I want someone to sing like a Jason
I know. If
Derulo.
I had a better voice, I would try to do that Jason, that auto-tune thing he does with his name, but I'm not going to attempt that live.
Maybe we'll get some music later in the
we can layer that in on the sound effects.
Do you have any questions for Diana coming in?
Yeah, there's one from Salesforce Plus from Leah. And Leah asks, is the transform functionality in Flow meant to be a replacement to the declarative roll-up summary application?
No. I think that has some different characteristics. I think transform is meant to do a lot more complex things and be a little closer. We're looking more at some of the things like data weave, things in MuleSoft and Tableau can do in terms of transforming data. So while it does address that use case, I think for some things, I think that one's a little more optimized for that roll-up. And so we're not looking to kind of compete. It's just often part of a bigger story or things you want to do externally is what Transform is going to be really powerful for.
Okay, well, speaking of Transform, we had one of the top questions yesterday was a complaint that we didn't have a Flow plushie on the set.
Yes.
I heard you brought a little something.
I brought a little plan. Well, I wasn't in a day able to somehow source a Flow plushie, but I figured for all of our fans out there, if you can't have a squirrel, you can still be the squirrel. So I am prepared to offer myself up or just encourage any real fans of Flow out there to just dress up as Flow. We may not have a plushie, but we can still embrace the power of the, flying squirrel. So
Salesforce mascot cosplay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna, Salesforce bound as Flow. for this release readiness night. So we couldn't get you the plushie, but here to offer myself up instead.
Real life flow.
Real life flow. Can't have the flow, be the flow.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question before we move on to our next section. We actually even had some questions that we didn't even get to yesterday during the flow session. So let's ask, is there a plan to allow using filters based on data from related objects in flow triggers?
I would love to do that. That is a lot of work. We definitely heard that. It is on my wish list, but I think so in entry conditions and record triggered flows, we added formulas, which allows you to do it. Can be a little slower. It's a little more complex to configure, so we would absolutely love to optimize it and also put in those entry conditions, put it in schedule flow triggers. It's just not a small amount of work, so we talked a lot yesterday about idea exchange and getting those points in there. So yeah, it's on the wish list, but we have to balance that with some of the other things we're trying to do.
Okay, well, if you really want that, then
really want that, vote for it. I really want that.
Go vote for it on the idea exchange.
Absolutely.
I love it. Thank you so much, Diana. Any other fun things we want to talk about in the chat before we move on to our next section?
I mean, everybody just loves real life flow, and they say be the flow that you want to see in the world.
Be the
and
flow
I feel like that's what we're doing here today.
There we go.
All right, well, we're going to flow right into the next section here of the admin preview. And this is a really exciting section. I hope you all pay attention. This is about Prompt Builder. And to talk to us about Prompt Builder, we have the amazing Tiaan Kruger, Senior Director of Product Management. Take it away, Tiaan.
Thank you, Jillian. So I get to talk to you about one of the hottest things in tech right now, generative AI. What we noticed here at Salesforce is that companies were already bringing generative AI into their businesses, but there was a couple of struggles that they were dealing with in trying to do that. First, bringing their data and integrating it into the existing flows that's there is really difficult. There's risks of leaking your data. And then lastly, putting those processes back into the workflows you already have is really, really difficult. So here at Salesforce, we took on the challenge to build a solution for that. Introducing Prompt Builder. So if you've seen some of the demos that's out there, it's really, really powerful, but it's really simple to use. Prompt Builder is where your instructions to your AI come together with your data. With this simple resource picker, you can find any data that you want to bring in and simply merge it into your prompt template. That is then ultimately generating a prompt that's sent to an LLM to get a response back. But that's great. Well, what about what it looks like for real users? So let's go in a little deeper. So many of the demos you've seen already uses generative AI to generate great sales emails like the one in front of you. But I'm not going to show you email. I'm actually going to show you something much more custom. So I'm going to click this button over here, and what it's going to do, flow is everywhere, so like you just saw, and I'm actually going to use a screen flow here in a modal on my contact record. And what you're going to see is it's going to allow me to pick a product, and when I pick that product and I click next, it's going to generate a quick call to action. This is a call to action that you can send via text message or WhatsApp to a customer. And there you go. You've got a great call to action here. Enhance Acme Sugar Company's customer experience with Wonk's Cocoa Nib infused olive oil. How great is that? And every time you run this, it will actually generate a different call to action. Now, this is great, right? So I don't want you to get caught up on the particular use case. I actually want you to imagine in your org what you can do with generative AI and where you would put it. The reason that is very exciting is because in the GA that is shortcoming here, you will be able to actually create a couple of different types of prompt templates. You can do field generation, you can do record summaries, you can do sales emails. You can also do a thing called flex templates. So what's a flex template? A flex template allows you to create a prompt template that takes data that is unique to your org. You can literally create inputs of data, including custom objects, that you can pass into your prompt template to then use to generate an interesting response, like a quick call to action. So let's jump to this template we just used. And here you'll see we've got our instructions to the LLM here, all of our merge fields for the data to come in. We've got the preview down here. And when I actually run this, so let's grab that same product we used. Actually, let's use a different one. There we go. So you can pick any product you have there, and you can actually run this against the LLM. You can see on the left bottom here what actually was sent to the LLM, so what was the prompt that was created. So it's just like the prompts that you would use in, say, ChatGPT, but instead of having going back and forth to add the data, you can actually just merge the data straight in. And on the right, you can see the response. All right. One more thing to point out. One of the things that I am particularly excited about here at Salesforce is we are LLM agnostic. We actually bring a whole bunch of LLMs that's available for you right out of the box that you can pick from, so you can run the right LLM with your prompt. But you can also bring your own. So if you have a specific LLM you want to use, you can actually use it on the 1 or 2 or 20 or 100 prompt templates that actually make sense for it. This allows for incredible flexibility in your system. Now, great. So we've built a custom prompt template or a flex template. We chose to pass in a contact and a product. But how could we use this? How do we put this into our workflows? Well, I'm going to show you the flow example, but these things are actually invocable actions. So anywhere you can use an invocable action, you can actually call a flex template. But let's look specifically inside of flow, because this is Admin Release Live, and we want to show you that you can actually be a prompt engineer with no code, just clicks and a little bit of instructions to an AI. One of the very exciting features that's coming with our GA is the ability to call prompt templates as an invocable action. So inside of your invocable actions list, you can actually now see there is a new option called prompt template. And in this, you can pick the exact same one we just had, generate quick call to action. And you're going to see that's going to require ask us to pass in the data that you selected when you created that flex template. What this ends up looking like is you can pass in the contact and the product that we picked in our screen flow, and then actually put out the customer message that the customer can then see. This allows you to take prompt templates, generative AI, take your data, your instructions, put them together, and put the result anywhere where a user has a need for an AI moment to lift their productivity and speed up their job. With that, that is my demo. Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you so much, Tiaan. Very exciting stuff. I bet you've got questions, and believe me, we are trying to keep track of them right here. So get your question right now into the chat right here in the Salesforce Plus Q&A tab, or you can ask your question on the Trailblazer community, or on X, Twitter, the twits, as I sometimes affectionately call it, using hashtag SalesforceRRL. Okay, Ella. I bet people are going wild. What's happening?
There is a lot of excitement in the chat about the possibility with this new generative AI tools. This is really exciting. And we also have folks on X. Squire says, what could be better than going on vacation, Admin Preview Live, right beforehand? That's pretty amazing. So folks are really excited to be tuning in today.
I love that. Okay, so let's get into some questions. Thank you, Tiaan, for showing that. Amazing stuff. Let's get into some questions. The first question I want to ask you is, how does the trust layer protect you when you're using prompt templates through Flows or Copilot?
Yeah, so the trust layer is incredibly important. One of the big things that every customer I've spoken to has as a top concern is, how is my data safe? There's a couple different ways that the trust layer protects you. We have zero retention agreements with all of our LLM providers, so they will not store any of your the prompts you send or the responses. It all gets stored in Data Cloud in your org, so you have it, which is really, really good. We also do masking of any sensitive data that we detect on the way out and on the way back. So we're continuing to develop that layer to add additional protections for you, but all of that's in there so that you can feel confident about using generative AI, even with your sensitive data, and get great results to lift your users' workflows.
Well, trust is our number one value at Salesforce, right? So we take it seriously, especially when it comes to AI. So
exactly.
It's good to know. Ella, do you have a question for Tiaan?
I do. Well, first, I just want to shout out that Andrew in the chat is saying that he's been using Prompt Builder for the last 3 months, and it is game-changing. So a lot of excitement.
Hey, Andrew.
Being shared there.
He's in the pilot.
He's in the pilot.
Yes. Christian had a question on Salesforce Plus around, will end users be able to edit the prompt before a response is generated?
No. So It's a little bit more subtle than that. The way you use prompt templates, it could vary drastically. They can be used in Copilot. They can be used in Flow. They can be used in triggers. There's all different kinds of ways that you can integrate prompt templates into your system. So depending on how the end user decides to implement that, there's a decision that they can make during that implementation. Can the user interface with it or interact with it? The places where we have it right now, no, the user can't basically modify or edit the prompt before it goes out, and there's security reasons for that too. If you let somebody change the prompt that's sent, they can try to override some of the safety mechanisms in there, etc. So generally, no, doesn't mean you can't go build it. I mean, I just showed you, you can literally build whatever your heart desires.
I love it. Let them build it. Let them build it. Okay, we have more questions for you before you're out of the hot seat.
Sure.
All right. Are there limits to how much you can put into a prompt template?
Yes. So if you've worked with any kind of generative AI, you know that there are limits to how much data you can send in on a given request or the responses you can get back. Good news is the LLMs keep getting bigger and bigger. You can send more and more data. Of course, it takes a little longer to come back. So what we recommend is as you're building and testing your prompt templates, make sure that you're really thinking about that data that you pass in. If that data can grow kind of unexpectedly, you may actually run into some limits. We're actually working on some features that's going to help you manage that a bit. That being said, be very, very data conscious, especially when you pick a model that has a smaller window of data. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that data conversation is so important when it comes to AI, right? It's making sure the data is accurate, making sure the data is protected, making sure that it's clean. So, reminder, best practices.
And generative AI is a little bit like a person, right? It wants to give you an answer, and if you don't give it the data to give you a good answer, it'll make something up. Yeah. So remember as you're building these prompt templates, right? So as you get this tool and you get playing with it, make sure that you protect your end users by giving as much data as the LLM needs to give you a really good quality answer and don't hallucinate.
I love that. Okay, well, thank you, Tiaan. We're going to have more questions for you. And Diana, don't worry, we've still got questions coming in for you, too. We'll get to that. We're going to get to our other section here next from the admin preview. And this one, I mean, speaking of Einstein and Prompt Builder, this one is all about Einstein Copilot, some very exciting new technology. And to present this to us is the incredible Carlos Lozano, Director of Product Management. Carlos, take it away.
Thanks, Jillian. Thank you for having us, and thank you for tuning in. I'm excited to be here, so let's get started. With Einstein Copilot, we're making it easy and possible to deploy a trusted conversational AI assistant using the data and processes you already have in Salesforce. So let's imagine I'm a sales rep and I'm wondering what's on my new patch and how to get familiar with it. With Einstein Copilot, instead of clicking all over the place, I can simply express these questions in natural language like list all my accounts and get a useful generative AI answer on desktop, laptop, and mobile. And because Einstein Copilot is conversational, I can reply with something like, show me a list for my open opties for the second one. And I'll be understood in the context of this ongoing conversation. And Einstein Copilot can also help me take action, enabling me to say things like, no, focus on what's closing this month. And later, saying something like, and summarize it for me, please. And again, I'll be understood and get a good result. Interactions like this will empower every team to work faster, and the amazing news is that what we're showing you will be available out of the box very soon, which means you'll be able to bring the efficiency benefits of trusted conversational AI to your business. But eventually, end users and admins will discover a question related to their business that Einstein Copilot cannot answer. For example, if I reply with something like, what can I sell for this account's opportunity? We'll see that Einstein Copilot does not yet have this capability. But this challenge is actually a huge opportunity because it gives us a chance to talk about how Einstein Copilot works and, more importantly, how you can adapt it to your business. And it all begins here in Einstein Copilot Studio, where you can customize your Einstein Copilot. And the key way Einstein Copilot will do that is through this library of actions. these actions that give Einstein Copilot all of its capabilities, like finding, summarizing, and updating records or drafting emails. And what you're looking at here are just some of the standard Copilot actions we're shipping. But notice, you can also add your own custom Copilot actions to extend Copilot with new capabilities. For example, this is a flow that this company built before they were even thinking about conversational AI. And they've been using it to identify the most appropriate products for each customer's account. The flow will take as an input the account's name, which will be extracted from the conversation. Then it will use this to get the account's details, industry, and the products previously purchased, to then return a list of recommended product that will be relevant for it. And if you recall, we asked Copilot, what can I sell for this opportunity? And this flow is the answer to that question. And how do we give Einstein Copilot the ability to use this flow? Create a custom Copilot action and point to that very product recommendation flow. This is almost the only thing we need to do to enable Einstein Copilot to inherit the capabilities of this flow. But there's still one critical step remaining. We need to make sure we have good description for what this flow does and how it should be used. And why is this important? Because Einstein Copilot is using NLP capabilities of LLMs to interpret the user's input, its library of actions, and making dynamic plans to fulfill requests. And that's it. Descriptions is all you need. And where can we use this? In the Copilot Studio, where we can help you preview your Copilot and inspect how it works. And here, as an admin, notice how I was able to impersonate how my business users will interact. I was able to recreate the conversation and how, notice, at every user request, there's a dynamic plan and its execution to fulfill it. Let's take a look at that very example, showing biggest opportunities in how it was able to understand that in context, in a multi-turn fashion, and using conversation history. Great. Now, let's go ahead and add our custom Copilot action to it, and let's retry that original question of, okay, what products can I sell here? And now, what we'll see is that Einstein Copilot used its natural language understanding to not only understand our question, but correctly make a dynamic plan involving our new action, which then executed and generated a useful AI answer based on a flow we already have. So, to recap, we took a quick tour to showcase how with Einstein Copilot, the benefits of conversational AI will become accessible to you with first, a turnkey solution, and two, a turnkey solution that can then be extended and adapted to your business using the skills you already have and the customizations and automations you've already built in Salesforce. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Carlos. We've got a lot of new information coming your way, and viewers, I bet you have a lot of questions. So please, as a reminder, ask your questions right there in the Q&A tab right here on Salesforce Plus. You can also ask your questions in the Trailblazer community, as well as on Twitter using hashtag SalesforceRRL. Carlos, thank you so much. That was amazing. You showed us a lot of great things. We're going to get to some questions, but first we're going to check in with Ella. Ella, what's going on in the chat?
There's a lot of interest. This is definitely a new technology for admins, and so I see a lot of folks wanting some more resources and to learn more. So very exciting to kind of see that.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, you know, a lot of this technology is really new for our community, and so that's why we're here. We're here to help everyone learn and get up to speed and get prepared for when this is, you know, when this becomes applicable to your business. You can start learning now and get the skills and kind of get a grasp on the technology. And that's what we're doing right now. All right, so speaking of that, Carlos, now you're in the hot seat. Let's ask you some questions.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's start. I'm going to start with a question, and then Ella, I'll throw it to you because I know there's a bunch of questions coming here. So I guess on what you said earlier from the chat, where can people learn more about Copilot?
I think TDX is a great opportunity for folks to come and join us. There will be a number of breakouts happening and also 2 workshops that folks cannot miss to get hands-on on Einstein Copilot.
And so Trailblazer DX is our developer conference, which is for admins, it's for developers, it's for architects, it's for all of our builders, and it's on March 6th and 7th. So shameless plug right there. Come join us. You can also join virtually as well, right here on Salesforce Plus, in fact. So hope you can make it. And yes, great way to learn more. All right, Ella, Any other questions coming in for Carlos?
Yeah, Karina in the Salesforce Plus chat asked, can Einstein Copilot help fill out records?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a number of operations that you can do with Einstein Copilot, and some of the things we were not able to show in this very fast demo were what type of actions actually can I use for Einstein Copilot. So if you're a Salesforce admin, a Salesforce developer, you're already using Apex and flows, and if you're already using prompt templates, these are basically the underlying actions that can help you turn them into conversational copilotable actions that you can use in a conversational flow. And so whatever you do with a flow or with an Apex or with prompt templates, you're basically going to be able to do it conversationally with Einstein Copilot.
So let's dig into that for a little bit, because you talked about how Copilot works with Prompt Builder. Can you guys unpack that a little bit more for our audience?
Absolutely. Tiaan, you want to take it away? I think it would be a great actually opportunity to showcase what is the next step here. What could I actually? We didn't have time to show it, but we would show it, right? Like, so how does Prompt Template and Einstein Copilot actually, join hands?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Einstein Copilot and Prompt Builder is like a match made in heaven. Prompt templates, as you build those, can do all kinds of clever things, right? Where you're taking instructions and data and bring them together to get an action. But as you're starting to build those in your org, if any of those templates actually fit in the use cases where a user would want to discover it in Copilot and actually run it, you can just plug any of those prompt templates that you have already built into Flow and anywhere else in the org and just set them up just like you did in your demo. For that flow, you can call a prompt template and actually have a prompt template produce a result right there in Copilot.
Absolutely. And for example, one of the things we showed in the demo was the ability to summarize the record, right? This is actually leveraging a prompt template behind the scenes. You can create your custom prompt templates and turn them into Copilot custom actions and use them conversationally. Perhaps an upgrade to the demo that we were showing, remember that we were showing recommended products, would be to say, what would be the next level of recommendations? Not only I provide a recommendation, but why are we providing this recommendation? And use the power of prompt templates to give us that reasoning, right? Since all of the information is in Salesforce, we can basically leverage prompt templates in that regard.
I love that we got these two very powerful AI tools that really put admins in the strategic role of figuring out how to best use this for their businesses. And so thank you both for being here. And I'm sure we're going to dig into lots more questions, but we are going to continue because we have one more section here of the admin preview that we want to get to. And that might be one of my favorite sections. I'm sorry, no shade on any of you guys. It might partially be me because of the presenter, but this last section is all about admin highlights coming in the Spring 24 release, presented by the amazing colleague of mine, lead admin evangelist, Jennifer Lee. Take it away, Jen.
Thanks, Jillian. I'm super excited to be in the studio live. And I'm going to show you a few more features that admins should be excited about. So first up, cross-object fields. Bring in fields from related objects into your Lightning record page using dynamic forms in Lightning App Builder. So for example, you can bring your account fields onto your contact record page, and you can span 2 levels of relationships. So you can go from contact to account to parent account. And this is a true to the core request that covered 35,000 points. Note that cross-object fields are currently read-only, so use those cross-object fields today and do away with the formula fields and other workarounds. Now, we delivered on a key ask from the Trailblazer community with dynamic actions on mobile for standard objects. So now you can configure dynamic actions on mobile in the highlights panel as well as the page properties in Lightning App Builder. And as you configure those dynamic actions, you can view them at design time by switching over to the phone form factor. Now, this was a long-standing gap and a true to the core request, so we're very excited to deliver on both features. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if you had an assistant that translated formulas for you and explained them? Well, relief is coming soon for those on unlimited and enterprise editions. So with Einstein for Formulas, you can have Einstein explain your configured formulas in formula fields, validation rules, and default values in fields. So in Spring 24, you can have Einstein explain those configured formulas. And looking down further in the roadmap, in Summer 24, Einstein will debug and fix formula errors for you. That's super cool. And in Winter 25, you can use natural language to describe your formula, and Einstein will create it for you. No more needing to Google to figure out what the right syntax to use. All right, so the best part about RRL is the demos. So we're gonna go and do a quick demo. I'm in my Mochi Cupcakes fictional org. And previously, when we needed to bring in fields from related objects, we needed to resort to things like adding formula fields or using the related record component in Lightning App Builder. Well, not anymore. With cross-object fields, you now go into dynamic forms, locate the related object, then the field, and you drag it onto the canvas. It's that easy. And because it's in Lightning App Builder, you can set component visibility. So we're going to say best method of contact is email. Now notice over to the left, we'll see the breadcrumb path, and over to the right in the page properties panel, we'll see the related object and the field API name. Now mobile just got even better with dynamic actions on mobile. But first things first, we need to go to the Salesforce mobile app and setup. And we need to go to dynamic actions on mobile and enable it. Then we're going to go over to Lightning App Builder. And this time we're on the contact record page. So we're in the highlights panel. We're going to upgrade to dynamic actions. And I'm going to add a custom action that I already created. And again, because we're in Lightning App Builder, we could set the component visibility. So I'm going to set it to form factor equals phone. Now, if you're only interested in setting up dynamic actions for the Salesforce mobile app, you can go into page and then check the box here to enable page level dynamic action for Salesforce mobile app. So here I'm going to configure that view map action, and I'm going to add edit. And note that if you use the page level dynamic actions, those will take precedence over any dynamic actions that you configure in your highlights panel. And since we're in Lightning App Builder, I can preview those changes by going to the phone form factor. Now, with all the excitement around AI innovations, I'm really excited to finally see an AI tool that helps admins be more productive. So I'm an admin. I need to go in and make a change to an existing validation role. I need to first understand what is going on with that validation role before I make any changes. But I may have not created this formula, or it might be pretty complex to figure out. I can have Einstein help me by clicking the Explain Formula button. And that will activate Einstein and prompt Einstein to explain that formula for me. So Einstein came back and said that it validates if the specified contact method is selected and the corresponding contact field is blank. Now I can click more details to get a more detailed explanation, which may include field names. And we can also provide feedback to the AI model, right? Thumbs up if it was accurate, thumbs down to provide it additional information as to why it didn't meet the criteria. So that's it for my demo, and I'm going to kick it back to Jillian.
Thank you so much, Jen. Amazing job. Come on, cross objects. Anyway, you're all going to have questions. I know you do. So please, a reminder to ask your questions right here in the Salesforce Plus chat in that Q&A tab. Also, you can ask your questions on the Trailblazer community as well as on Twitter using hashtag SalesforceRRL. Also, a quick shout out. So I know admins, we care a lot about improving how our product is used, making product enhancements. We heard a little bit earlier from Diana about the Idea Exchange. A reminder that the Idea Exchange is very powerful. Our product managers really do use that information to help them prioritize what they build in their product roadmap. So if there's something that you're not seeing or you have an idea about, go to the Idea Exchange. Put it on there. Vote about it. All right, Ella, I want to check in with you. What is going on in the chat?
Oh my God, Jen, the chat was just absolutely lighting up throughout your presentation. People were so excited about formulas. There's so much, yes, wow, finally, oh my gosh. Leah said, this is game-changing, guys. Holy cow. And of course, a lot of excitement as well for cross-object fields. Someone said, this is the best. There it is. So much excitement there in the chat. Yeah, mic drop.
Yeah, gosh, if that Einstein for formulas existed when I was first trying to learn how to use formulas, that would have
saved so much time in Googling. Like, yeah.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Okay, so Jen, let's get to some questions for you because, I mean, you and I could go and talk about that forever. I'm sure other people have things to talk about that they don't always get to sit next to and talk to about. All right, so let's start with this question. Will cross-object fields be available via the page layout editor?
The answer is no. So unfortunately, it is only available in dynamic forms in the Lightning App Builder.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Ella, do you have a question for Jen?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorting through all of the questions that came in here. Give me a second, there's a lot.
Okay, all right. I mean, I can keep going if you need a minute. You're keeping Ella busy, everybody. Yes. Okay, I have another question for you, Jen, and then again about cross-object fields. Will they support visibility rules?
Yeah, so as you saw in the demo, because it's in Lightning App Builder, and I love component visibility, I could be using it over and over and over again. But yes, you could set it at the field level.
Love that. That's good. Okay, Ella, are you ready now? Do you have a question?
I do have a question for Jen. And it actually comes from someone who's watching who's a newer admin, who's saying, a lot of these features that we've talked about today, a lot of them for folks with not as much admin experience could seem quite advanced. Do you have any advice for folks who are kind of newer to the role of a Salesforce admin and how they can kind of prepare for releases and learn more about these features?
Yeah, so definitely read through my highlights blog on the admin.salesforce.com.
Yes.
But spend some time with release notes. I know those could be overwhelming because I think they're like 500 plus pages, but focus on the areas that are important to your business, right? And then get a sandbox and play around with it, because the best part and to have it like really sink in is to actually go in, enable it, play around with it, and then once you absorb what's going into release, what I used to do was do lunch and learns with my business users and with my overall team to even like share my knowledge so that everybody is up to speed with the latest release.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of new technology coming. It can be pretty overwhelming. And your posts that you put up on my favorite website, admin.salesforce.com, is a great way to get up to speed with this release. And I think just in general, it's a lot to take on as a new admin because our platform is so robust and we have amazing new AI capabilities and we have automation capabilities. And it can be a little overwhelming. But I think between we have that admin beginner trail on Trailhead, which is a great way to start. And really just starting to see the content, especially we put out on admin.salesforce.com, is really helpful between blogs and podcasts. It's Thursday. There's a new Salesforce Admins podcast out. Download it today. It's a really great way to kind of start to understand some of these concepts and how people are using them. So.
And I think, Jen, you hit the nail in the head with regards to using a sandbox, right? It'll be the same for Prompt Builder and for, you keep me honest, right? And for Einstein Copilot, right? You want to get used to these technologies and to this new way of working, and sandbox is the way to do it.
Before you even roll it out.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't ever want to test anything in production, right? That's just bad. We don't do that. We don't do that. All right, Ella, do you have another question for Jen?
I do. My next question for Jen, let's see here. Can we use the record detail component to display the primary record fields and use dynamic forms to show cross-object fields in the same Lightning record page?
So we don't recommend mixing the two just because it could result in unexpected behavior. So stick with one or the other. I highly recommend dynamic forms.
Okay, take it from Jen. Trusted source. Okay, I think now we can open up the Q&A to all of you now. That you've all now technically been in the hottest seat, but now all the seats are warm, if not more than warm, semi-hot. So let's go ahead and tackle some of these amazing questions that have come in. Ella, do you have one that you want to start with?
Yeah, we can start with this question from Nathan on Salesforce Plus. Diana, I think this one is for you. And Nathan asked, as an admin, one of the biggest worries about a major version upgrade is having things overwritten. Does this release reset any settings back to default?
No, we're very careful about that. That is a big no-go. So unless the only times I've seen things like that happen are usually around some kind of security thing where we have to push something out and then we attempt to do it. So in Flow in particular, there is a version in the advanced settings. So like, for example, ScreenFlows, a lot of the cool stuff I showed you doesn't work on the old versions of ScreenFlows, but we don't touch those. So if you don't need to make those reactive, those keep running, but we do recommend that you upgrade to at least version 59 if you want to use those new features. So you as the admin can choose when to upgrade those, and that's when Jen was talking about the release notes. The release notes try to make that really clear. In Flow, we have a separate section around version stuff. So anytime we're making a change that would affect existing or running automation, we put it in there. And if something breaks, things go haywire, we roll it back, or we do massive amounts of communication in those very rare instances where it's something like security that we can't continue to sustain. It's also why I mentioned that help text. We have this weird thing where it's false instead of true elsewhere. We would love to fix it, but that would break everybody's ones that are assuming it's true. And if we changed it in some places and not others on the version upgrade, then it would be really confusing for builders depending on which flow they're building. So we end up having to live sometimes with the results of these decisions because of this, but it also means we do take it really seriously.
Yeah. And it's nice. I mean, the admins, again, like you said, have the control of when to use the latest version.
Use that
versus,
latest version. Exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, we got lots more questions. So let's see. This is actually, I think, Tiaan, this is going to come back to you. This is a question about your demo. How did you get a screen flow in a modal? That's from Kevin on Salesforce Plus.
That's a sneaky question. So there's actually a AppExchange package that gives this wonderful ability to put a screen flow in a modal. And why that's not standard functionality, I'm not sure. Maybe some idea exchange points.
You might want to ask somebody.
I'm just saying idea exchange points. It's a great feature, and one of the other things you can do with it, which is going to be very handy with generative AI, is you can actually make a modal pop without them clicking a button. So if you, for instance, have a summary that you want to pop up on an account right before somebody goes onto a call, or summarize a case right as somebody comes in, you can automatically run a prompt template right as the record loads, which is it's a great little plugin. It's free, and it's built with somebody at your Salesforce, and it's really, really handy. So figured it was handy for me to use, so maybe some other people can get some use out of it. But good spot.
Okay, the admin preview viewers pay attention to everything, so there's no sneaking anything past them. All right, Ella, what do you got?
The next question, Diana, comes to you from Denise in the Salesforce Plus chat. Will process builders continue to work if left alone?
Yes. So we are not, like I said, we're not kind of turning off a giant light switch that they just stop running one day, but we won't be investing in bug fixing on them, so things might kind of naturally degrade over time. I think there's other retired features on the Salesforce platform that have met similar fates where they don't disappear, but they might run into more problems or just get more behind the times. And also we want to protect our support team. So calling into support, getting help with all of those kind of things. So we recognize some of this might take a long time. We know admins are really strapped. That's why we've announced this 3 years ago to try to give people as much time as possible. But we also understand we can't just sort of strong arm it. So, but we do want to make sure we're investing our time in the future. So
we got till December 2025.
December 2025. That's plenty of time.
That's a long time. All right, Carlos, I have a question coming to you about Copilot. Jenna on Salesforce Plus wants to know, will the admins have any visibility into what questions their users are asking?
Yes, there will be reporting and logs as well that you basically can consume and can customize, benefiting from the beauty of having an open platform.
See what users are asking, right?
Absolutely,
Better
yes.
optimizing for that. Okay, Great. That's wonderful. Ella, what you got?
Diana, I have another question for you. Are you ready? All right, Ben wants to know, does Flow now handle push notifications to users? That's one thing that's holding me back on Process Builder.
I'm not sure. I know we have custom notification as an out-of-the-box action. Jen, do you know if that... I honestly don't know the extent of what that supports or what might be available in the App Exchange.
I know you could do custom notifications, but I'm not sure if you could.
I'm not sure if that's
else.
push. Not sure. Ask that in the Trailblazer community, and I'll check with the team. I don't know.
Yeah, any of the questions that either we aren't able to fully answer right here, or we just don't have time to answer, please ask them in the Trailblazer community. That lives on beyond this live show, whereas the Salesforce Q&A, the Salesforce Plus Q&A chat doesn't necessarily. We are taking the questions and putting them in these docs, but if you've got a question, and also if you're viewing this on demand, please ask it in the Trailblazer community. That way we'll be able to get an expert answer for you, because that is where our product teams are checking and where we'll be able to make sure they're checking. Okay, we have more questions. Jen, I'm going to ask this to you, and I'm not sure if you know the answer, but this is about cross-object fields. Carl from Salesforce Plus wants to know, will they show up on reports? Have you tested that out?
I have not tested it out, but I believe the PM, Elizabeth, might be on Salesforce chat. So if not, then definitely throw it into the Trailblazer community and we'll get that answered for you.
Yeah, shout out to Elizabeth Martin, the amazing PM who worked on those features. So yeah, ask that question in the Trailblazer community and we'll make sure that you get a follow-up answer. Ella, what do you got?
I'm just going to continue my role with all these amazing flow questions.
But you're in the flow.
Yeah, I'm in the flow here.
More people have used flow. Yeah. Everything's really cool that they're doing. Everyone knows all
You'll get a lot more questions.
Nooks and cranny questions in flow.
Well, Jen might be able to help you out with this one. This one came from Salesforce Plus, and this person's new to flow. Do you have any tips for them to learn quickly?
Oh my goodness.
Anybody on the panel, because Tiaan had to build a flow for his demo, right?
Trailhead is definitely the first
Yeah,
place.
absolutely, Trailhead to start.
It's like so many like hands-on challenges now.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Ross, who's is a community member, joined Salesforce, and has been actively building out Trailheads for the last year or two, just to support
one of the original Flownatics.
One of the coined the term Flownatic. Any tips from either of you?
No, I think Trailhead's fantastic. I was a Salesforce admin and developer for 13 years, and I lived in Trailhead. I mean, you learn so much there. And that's true for Flow, it's true for Copilot, it's true for Prompt Builder. There's already trails out there for it. There's some hands-on trails coming maybe soon for those
Forward-looking statement.
Forward-looking statement. But yeah, that's going to be the number one place to learn it. And then there's just so many trailblazers out there that's willing to share. Google's a great resource, and you know,
community.
Yeah, and all the streaming platforms has amazing trailblazers out there teaching each other. So
yeah, I always think also it kind of depends on how you learn, right? Different people like the hands-on can be really good. Another strategy that I've employed, because I've gotten very overwhelmed, I joined Salesforce without knowing the platform at all, is focusing on the business case and what you need to learn, and then maybe going to the community and saying, you know, if you're not sure which topics to pick, right? You're like, I need to do this kind of thing. And then they can say, okay, now is a good time to learn about screen flows or LWC. And you don't have to worry about scheduled flows and back-end automation unless you're trying to do this kind of thing. So I think you don't need to learn all of flow at once. Like the push notification questions, there's areas we all focus ourselves. So focus on what you're going to need for your business first, and that can help ease you in.
I think that's a really good point. And I know, Jen, you talked about this a lot. Like, think about the use case before you even start talking about the technology solution. I mean, even when it comes to Copilot and Prompt Builder, right? Like, what use case are you trying to help before you actually start mapping out and building anything?
Or like start with the basics, learn from Trailhead, like the very basics of flow, and then you don't even have to like focus on business use cases. Think of your own personal
use cases,
right? And like get a sandbox and just like play around with it.
And find ways to like understand and learn about use cases that other folks are using. Like you mentioned, I think you both mentioned Automate This, which is an amazing YouTube series that Jen hosts, and that's a great opportunity to see others' use cases for flow. And for me, I'm someone that learns by kind of seeing those stories, and I found that super helpful in kind of building my flow knowledge, see how other people are using it, and then apply that to whatever it is I'm trying to do.
That's a nice plug. The one of the wonderful things about the Salesforce platform is that you can get a free environment to play with for you personally. And you know, I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for almost 20 years. I still maintain that org that I go in and try things out and play with new technology, dynamic forms, and all of these exciting things. So that's a phenomenal resource to keep around. And just when it complains it's going to time out, just tickle it and just keep using it. It's a phenomenal learning tool, just hands-on to go play with it.
Plus, when you go into interviews for jobs, you can pull it up and show the person what you built.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's a demo resume. I love that. Great advice. Thank you, everybody. I bet we have some more questions, though, Ella, don't we?
We definitely do. Diana, no surprise, another one for you. You're in the hot seat again.
It's the scarf.
Yeah, the scarf and the goggles will protect you.
Get ready for this one. This is from Wendy, and Wendy wants to know, so Wendy finds the workflow rules and process builder migration tools very helpful, but will there ever be an option to migrate multiple at a time to Flow?
Probably not. I think we want to kind of modulate our investment on the tool, which we know you'll only use for a limited time, with things we can do in the long term. And what we heard more from people is that they wanted to kind of dynamically combine 3 workflow rules or split things up. We made it possible to split up Process Builder, but things like that are combination end up being a lot more complicated, and we find that those are probably still going to have to be manually migrated, or you are going to have to go. If it's just wanting to do a bulk, probably we'll still have to go through one by one on each of those, just for how the back end works and kind of saving all those flows at once. So probably not on there. If it's a real hurdle, maybe talk to us, but go ahead. Don't wait for it.
We're all about transparency here on Release Readiness Live, getting the real answers. Okay, I'm actually going to come back to you, Carlos. We have a question from Angelo on Salesforce Plus. Can you set up Copilot action to call a screen flow, or are the actions limited to auto launch flows?
For the launch, limited to auto launch flow. As a fast follow, we will be supporting screen flows, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
There's the flow, Einstein, everything is all together here. It's weird. It's like we all had you on the show together for a reason.
The future's looking bright.
It sure is. It sure is. All right, Ella, what else you got over there?
Jen, I think this one is for you. Can we relabel these cross-object fields? Do you know this one?
Currently, no.
Okay. There you go. And Elizabeth can elaborate more in the chat. Okay, let's see here. We've got one. This is actually, this is kind of, we hinted on this earlier, but I think this is a good discussion both for you, Tiaan, and Carlos. As admins are just now starting to think about AI and how it applies to their business, the question is kind of a general question we've seen pop up is, what at its core, what do admins need to know about generative AI?
All right. So this is actually a really good question, and actually a really important question. So we used to have shirts that said accidental admins. We should now make shirts that says accidental prompt engineer, right? Suddenly, all these admins, all of you are going to be put right in the middle of business to create prompt templates and interact with generative AI. And there are a fundamental set of things that you absolutely want to follow. For instance, I gave the one earlier. If you want to build, if you don't want to have hallucinations, which is when the AI makes up answers, make sure that you ground things with good data, the right data. If you ask it to generate a Airbnb listing, it will do it for you. It'll make up the house, it'll make up the rooms, it'll make up the plates, the city, not useful. But if you give it some grounding information, it'll actually produce a really, really good result. Inside of your business is no different. And so we already gave a plug to Trailhead, but again, we already have Trailheads up, and they actually don't start at Prompt Builder, they don't start at Copilot, they start all the way back at Prompt Engineering. And they actually teach you the fundamentals about what is hallucinations, what's an LLM, how do you interact with it, what should be in a prompt, what's important, what's the things you should think about. So go do those trails now, they're available already, and you can get ready for this revolution that's coming, because I will tell you, once this feature is available in your org, your company is going to come to you and say, hey, I heard you can put generative AI in my process here or here. How can you please do that, and can you do it yesterday? And so go build those skills now, but absolutely go build those fundamental skills because it is a different world. It is a different beast altogether. You can do incredible things with very, very little, but it's a little bit of an art for sure to get these LLMs to do the right thing that you want it to do repeatably. That's the key. Just because it works once, and I didn't call that out. Don't do it just once. Do it multiple times with multiple pieces of data. Test it. Make sure that it's not just working once or twice, but it's working repeatably.
I love that. Anything to add, Carlos?
Yeah, no, I'll plus one that. I think the quality of the data is everything, right? Like I would just summarize it at, garbage in, garbage out, right? So I think we have to start thinking about, is my data in the most accurate state? How are my knowledge articles looking? Are they reflecting my company policy, the way, I provide discounts for products? What do I want to expose publicly to customers, right? So if the data is up to date, and it's semantically meaningfully described, it will, that's basically, 80% of the job, right? So to say. And what's amazing is that if you're able to provide semantically meaningful descriptions, that is the only thing you need to basically leverage Einstein Copilot. Descriptions is all you need.
And if only we had a product that's really good at cleansing and harmonizing your data, right? Data Cloud, fantastic tool that works really well. We don't have Data Cloud represented here, but it's a beautiful tool that actually works really well with all of these different tools because it does help you clean your data, harmonize your data, and then ultimately drive some really cool features that's coming over the next couple of years, next couple of months actually.
Yeah, forward-looking statement.
I was very vague. I did not.
You got that right.
It's a bright future. That was a forward-looking statement as well.
It's a bright future.
And you mentioned the Trailhead resources that are available today, with maybe more coming soon potentially. But there are also a few blogs that and podcasts as well on the admin website, admin.salesforce.com as well.
That you help author.
Yes. I think they're great. They help me learn. Like I love when we can write something about what are hallucinations, what is a deep dive on Prompt Builder, and then in the process I get to learn a lot too. So those are definitely good resources, and I'd recommend 2 of them published this week. So everybody should definitely go check those out.
Admin.salesforce.com, my favorite website. Now, just as a reminder to everyone viewing, you might be like, hey, it's after 10 o'clock. Why are they still going? We are going till 10:15 because we have so much to cover. We have so many questions. So we've still got about, 8-9 minutes left of the broadcast. So please ask your questions live here in the Q&A chat in Salesforce Plus, as well as on the Trailblazer community. That's where we'll get to questions that we don't have a chance to get to right now. And we're also watching, well, I'm not watching, but Ella is watching Twitter and seeing what people are talking about on there using hashtag SalesforceRRL. Okay, let's get back to some questions. Ella, what you got over there?
Diana, there's a question for you from Ajay. Again, thank you so much for taking all these questions. Does Repeaters support lookup fields?
So I'm not the ScreenFlow's PM. You could mention, if they're not in the chat, Adam White and Sam Raynard, who will definitively answer. I think it is. If not in the beta, I think it will be at GA in the next release or two. But I think
ask it in the Trailblazer community. We'll make sure.
Actually, I'm not sure. So yeah, I don't want to. I know the plan is, I believe, for it to be in there, but
it's on the roadmap for sure.
It's definitely on the roadmap. I just don't know exactly whether it's in the already done or not done yet category.
So ask Adam White or Sam Raynard. We'll shout them out in the Trailblazer community if you ask your question there, Ajay. Okay, we have another question here. Let's see. This is a question about Einstein. So I think, Tiaan or Carlos, I think either one of you can take this. This is a question from Jason. Can Einstein be used to search to see if an account name exists and then assist in creating that record? I think that's a Copilot question.
Out of the box. So I think what's interesting to understand is that Copilot ships with actions out of the box. Out of the box, standard Copilot actions. And essentially is a turnkey for you to do conversational CRM off the bat. And this is a typical use case.
What are the other actions that are out of the box?
So the ability to basically query your CRM, the ability to summarize records, obviously update records, draft and refine emails. So those are the first cohort of out-of-the-box standard Copilot actions that we're shipping. And of course, you will be able to leverage your own Salesforce created custom actions and turn them into Copilotable. As fast follow, clouds are basically going to be shipping their very own out-of-the-box Copilot actions to basically solve each and every one of those vertical use cases.
Yeah, and if anyone's tuned into the shows earlier this week, we saw sales Copilot actions for sales demoed earlier in the Sales Cloud, and I think we even talked a little bit about it in service as well. So there are lots more actions on the roadmap coming out, and so thank you for
Absolutely. The ability to, for example, chat with your knowledge base, an out-of-the-box Copilot action, right? So answer questions on knowledge. It's a fantastic use case where we basically take unstructured data, which is the data in your knowledge articles, and give you the ability to chat with that data.
Yeah, we got a great demo of that in the service show yesterday. I think yesterday was service, yes. So watch it on demand. It's available now. Thank you. Ella, you got another question?
Yeah, and before I do, I just want to call out the chat because folks are also helping each other answer these questions, especially on repeaters. So thank you, Jonathan and Gail and everybody else for jumping in and sharing your expertise there. Love that. Yeah, it's amazing. Jen, I think this next one might be for you. And the question is cross-object fields in dynamic forms available now?
In the spring release, yes.
So
once your sandbox or once your production org upgrades, then yes, it will be available.
Yay. Love it. Okay, Diana, coming back to you. This question is from Claudia on Salesforce Plus. Can the flows in an org use different versions?
Yes.
Okay, great. One word answer. Love those on the show. Okay, Ella, you got another question?
Let's go back, Diana. I think this is a question that maybe we didn't have time to get to on the flow broadcast. For scheduled flows on debug, can you provide an option for us to select the record to test against?
Love that question because we are actually Safe Harbor. We are working on that currently. So ideally coming soon.
Awesome.
I love that. Coming soon. Okay, well, we got more questions. Okay, let's see, we talked about that one a little bit. Okay, this question is another one about Copilot. All right, so this is from Dalton on Salesforce Plus. Would Copilot give solutions to the user, such as if a duplicate account is shown, will Copilot suggest an account or contact merge?
So if there is an action or invocable action that already covers this use case, then we can turn this invocable action into a Copilotable action.
Okay, I like that.
Into a custom Copilot action. So the idea is that think about the actions and customizations and automations you already have in Salesforce. You will leverage those and you will be able to wrap those and turn those into custom Copilot actions. Of course, we're bringing you kind of the choice, right? There's out-of-the-box functionality coming out at launch that would be, fed as fast follow, release after release per cloud and also for the platform. But we need to, give you the opportunity to build on what you already have, right? And this is a great use case for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Ella, coming back to you.
Tiaan, the next question is for you. Can prompt responses be localized?
That's a great question. We have it's a complex answer to a simple question. Localization is a difficult topic, so I'm going to try and keep it high level. The LLMs have some capabilities to work with multiple languages. So, for instance, you can ask a prompt template to respond in Spanish, for instance. But you want to be very sure that the trust layer already has the ability to detect toxicity, etc., for that language. So there's, in the release notes, we're talking about exactly what languages the trust layer supports. We're constantly adding more, but verify there. Secondly, sometimes the response would need to be localized depending on the use case. For instance, if you're responding to a customer via email or you're responding to a case, you might actually want to respond in the end customer's language versus the rep or the sales rep's language. So it's pretty complicated in terms of how localization works. So there are some capabilities that's in GA, but there's more capabilities coming pretty quickly. And if you work in more difficult languages, for instance, something like Japanese, where the existing LLMs maybe are not perfect, you can actually look at bringing your own LLM in to produce results that works better in that language or that locale. Again, check the trust layer. It's really, really important. The trust layer is what checks to see if there's toxicity or if there's issues with what you're getting back. And if we don't have that locale or that language support in the trust layer, we won't catch things like that. So I know it's a complex answer. Localization is always a really complex topic, but we have some support. We'll add more as time progresses. Because we fully understand that, especially to our EMEA audience, this is a really, really, really big ask.
Yeah, for sure. I think these are very important problems that we're working on. So obviously language coverage and also the tone, right? Which what Tiaan is inferring to, right? So every brand has their tone or their personality, if you will. And so it's we are working on it as fast follow, and it's extremely important. If you have multiple brands, then probably you are managing multiple tones, right? And this is also something we're going to have to factor in, right? A customer support exposed Copilot probably has to be very professional, but perhaps internally in your company, your employee experience, if your heart so desires.
It's more like talking to me versus a customer. I get it.
It's a choice, right? And those are important problems we will be solving as well along the way.
Excellent.
If you need to respond as Astro, for instance.
Right. Astro and Cody will respond differently, right?
Exactly. They will. It's just Maxwell Cloudy. Shout out to Cloudy. Thank you so much, all of you, for putting together these presentations, all the work that your teams are doing to build the future for admins and the ecosystem, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here and answer all these questions. If you have a question that did not get answered, don't worry. Ella and I will make sure that it gets answered. Ask it in the Trailblazer community. Thank you so much for joining us today. A reminder, we've got one more great show of Release Readiness Live coming your way in just a little under an hour with Developer Preview, and you can watch all of the shows from this week on demand on Salesforce Plus. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you next time in the cloud.